Hey everyone, I'm Michael, and this is another episode in my series, A Plant a Week. In this series, I talk about various houseplants. I highlight one for the whole video, talking about how to properly care for it, how to water it, how to propagate it, everything that you need to know to keep your plant healthy and happy. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite plants, my Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora. So I've got this one right here that's climbing up on a pole. And I have two more that are in this bedroom of mine, and these ones I got at Home Depot. I'm not sure that they're quite the same as the other one out there because these ones have a lot of burnt tips. They need a lot more humidity, and they don't grow as nice as the other Tetrasperma I have outside. But I've got them, and they're mine, and yeah. Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious, if you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Okay, enough Mary Poppins references. Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora is more than a fun word to say. Known as the Monstera Ginny because of the similar way its plant leaves split, it's actually not a part of the Monstera family at all, but the family of Araceae, a family that isn't related to Monsteras or philodendrons at all. Years ago, when I first got into houseplants, I was making a list of all the ones that I wanted. This plant topped that list. Back then, it was incredibly difficult to find, and it actually stayed relatively difficult until about a few years ago. Now these are popping up in big box stores. I actually found these two at a local Home Depot, while my original one, the one on the pole, I purchased from a nursery. This has since become one of my fastest growing plants and one of my favorites. I love the broad leaves with the fenestrations. I love how hardy it is, how fast it grows, and the shape that it makes. Such a great plant. Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora do best in bright indirect light. I have mine in the center of my little apartment where it gets adequate lighting. I could move it closer to the south-facing window, but I have other plants who are bigger light whores and who seem to cry if they're not besides the window. And this one does just fine where it is. The great thing about these types of plants with fenestrations is that they tell you when they need more light. If new leaves are coming in without fenestrations, move it closer to a light source. Also, if you find that the growth has slowed down after moving this plant to a new area, that could also be an indicator that it needs more light. As far as soil goes, these plants prefer something a little airier, but not as airy as other tropicals. I have mine in a mix of potting soil and perlite, and that's because while they like to dry out between waterings, they also like their soil to hold a bit of moisture. I've heard some people say not to plant them in terracotta because it wicks away the water too quickly, but I haven't had much trouble with mine. It's best to underwater these plants than overwater them. I water mine about once a week, summer and winter. I find in this apartment it's so dry that it needs to be watered regularly. The goal is to never let the root ball completely dry out while also taking care that it doesn't become waterlogged. And I know that sounds like a bit of work, which might make you think that this plant can be a little bit fussy, but it really isn't. Keeping the roots moist leads to optimum growth, but if you let it dry out between waterings or even overwater it for a couple weeks, it's not going to kill the plant. These things are very hardy. Think of their care as sort of like a pothos, only with higher light requirements. The way you propagate Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora is also similar to pothos. Cut along a prominent stem just below a node, and then place that cutting in water or sphagnum moss to root. I've propagated them in water, and it's worked really well for me. It might take a little bit more time than propagating like a golden pothos or something like that, but I still didn't have any trouble with the rooting process. It just took a little bit longer than I expected. I fertilize all of my plants with various organic mixes and have actually been experimenting with using old coffee grounds and the remnants of used tea bags. I haven't seen much difference in the plants when fertilizing with those ingredients, but I've just begun that experiment, so we'll see how it goes. Normally I like this phytoplankton fertilizer I get from Amazon. You can also fertilize these with regular chemical fertilizers, and something balanced would work well for this plant, a 20-20-20 or 10-10-10, but make sure to dilute it before watering. While there aren't many pests that affect Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora, they are prone to spider mite. I have fought spider mites in the past, usually on my rubber plants, and they're absolutely disgusting. You can tell when you've got a problem when you notice little webs all over your plant with tiny white specks in them. Those are the spider mites. They're easy enough to get rid of, though, using regular insecticides or dish soap, vinegar, and water combination. I seem to have little trouble with pests in my plants, though, and I think that's because about once a month I add a few drops of pure peppermint oil into the water I use to water my plants. Peppermint oil is a great pest deterrent and keeps away small bugs and even bigger things like mice and spiders. These plants are toxic, and no, the slits in the leaves were not made from taking little bites out of them. It's best to keep your plant away from animals who like to eat them, or babies who like to put things in their mouths, or adults who, I guess, just want to feel a little sick or something. Don't eat your plants, people. Plants are friends, not food. If you're tight on space and want something that has that Monstera feel to it, then definitely check out the Tetrasperma Rhaphidophora. It's called a mini Monstera for a reason. Super easy to care for and becoming a lot more common to find, this plant is one of my favorites and one I highly recommend for all levels of experienced plant parents. Thanks again for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for similar content. On Mondays, I post videos about houseplants, and on Fridays, I also post videos about houseplants, and reading, writing, photography, art, and any other generic interests of mine. As always, you can find my social media links in the description below. Also, you can find links to H&H Games, the board game company I've helped create, and our debut board game, Season of Heroes. You can also find the Amazon links to my fantasy series, A Chronicle of Crowns. Thanks for watching, bye!